Hey everyone, this is Ron Matrella with Health Safe Safety Consultants. We're going to go over personal protective equipment today, better known as PPE. We're going to review hierarchy of controls, types of PPE, training requirements, responsibilities, and hazard recognition. Employers must protect employees. It's one of the requirements under the OSHA Act, but when it comes to PPE, where we're going to start is by assessing the workplace. It could be as simple as an in-depth safety audit, if you will, but we're particularly trying to identify hazards that we can eliminate or reduce by using engineering or administrative controls. When those aren't possible, we're going to use personal protective equipment. PPE is the last level of control. When it comes to protecting employees, the top of the pyramid, if you will, is to get rid of the exposure before it occurs. Next is engineering controls, which requires a physical change to the workplace. The level below that, which is a little less effective than requiring a change to the workplace, is administrative or work practice controls. And then followed by our last line of defense is PPE. And you can see on the pyramid that increasing effectiveness works from the last line of defense, which is PPE, all the way up to the top of the pyramid, which is where we would eliminate the exposure before it can occur. Engineering controls, they include isolation, ventilation, equipment modification, and others. An example of this would be a laboratory fume hood where someone is dealing with a chemical product underneath the hood, they're outside the hood, the contaminant is being exhausted away from them, and they're safe. What we've done is we've engineered out that hazard, if you will. Administrative controls requires the worker essentially to do something, and this is normally at the direction of the employer. It could be procedures, inspection, and maintenance requirements, a variety of things that help reduce that hazard. It doesn't eliminate the hazard, but it reduces the exposure to that employee. An example of noise exposure with administrative control is operating a noisy machine during shifts when fewer people are exposed, limit the amount of time a person spends around that noise, quiet areas, controlling the noise exposure through distance. Again, we're not eliminating the hazard, we're just reducing the exposure to the employee. Another example of this is if we had a freezer that we had to work in, and the amount of time we would spend in that very cold environment would just be reduced so that our PPE that we had on, or big thick jackets and other thermal wear, would be able to protect us for that short amount of time. Reviewing types of PPE. PPE puts a barrier between you and a hazard. From top to bottom, can range from hard hats all the way down to foot protection. We're going to review each. Head protection will help us protect our heads from a moderate amount of impact to that area. It can't protect us from severe impact or super heavy items. That's where assessing the workplace comes back into play, and we may be able to engineer out that extreme hazard through distance or some other protective measure. Head protection is very important, though, and it will protect your head when used properly in the right type of hazard environment. Again, picking the right PPE for the hazard is job number one after assessing the workplace. Classes of hard hats. A Class G is a general type of hard hat. It is voltage protected to 2200 volts, which will take into account most of the exposure of a general type employee in a construction environment. Next is a Class E electrical hard hat, and this is more for the electricians, but this is a good hard hat. It's a little more expensive, provides excellent protection, usually has greater increased webbing on the inside of the helmet itself, and this is proof tested, if you will, to high voltage shocks and burns at 20,000 volts. And then we have Class C hard hats, and this is really a bump cap, if you will. Bump caps aren't normally allowed on construction sites. In some limited environments and manufacturing, they can be obviously used, and they may have a definite role. But um, my recommendation is if you would like a hard hat for your employees, to make sure that it's a hard hat that will actually help them um, in a variety of different environments. Eye and face protection is critically important. This is one that most of us know more of than any other type of PPE. Safety glasses, right? We use safety glasses at the workplace and at home. The importance of having that safety glass on before the hazard can't be overstated. Common causes of eye injuries from dust all the way to intense light, harmful chemicals. The particular hazard you want to really identify and use the correct eye protection for that hazard. Not all eye protection is created equal, or will it protect against all hazards. For example, a safety glass. Safety glasses are wonderful to protect your eyes from an amount of impact. But if you're around something that could splash into your eyes, they are not the proper eye protection to wear. And we'll go over that. So we want to meet the requirements of ANSI Z87. How you'll know that is that will be stamped on your eye protection somewhere. Normally, if it's a safety glasses, it'll be on the inside of the temple bar. You'll see a small little fine print, ANSI Z87. What you want to consider is does it fit you? Is it going to protect you from the hazard? Is your vision restricted? Are they cleanable, durable? What's the shape that they're in at the moment, right? You want to inspect them ahead of time. And that other PPE that you have to use in conjunction with your safety glasses are not restricted by the use of that. All that simply means is if any of those variables come into play, goggles really work well when you're dealing with something that could splash into your eyes. Or also, if you have glasses that you wear, you can wear goggles over your glasses as well. You just can't, they can't interfere with the function of your glasses. But goggles are excellent. They provide a seal around your eyes so something cannot come under that lens, such as a safety glass. If you wore safety glasses, that could happen. All right, welding shields for employees that do weld. There's a particular shield that helps protect your eyes from intense light radiation and from flying sparks and splatter. Uh, Variety of different welding shields. Many of them self-darken to the degree of the light radiation. And again, want to make sure that you have the right welding shield for whatever you're doing. If you're a welder, a welding shield does not provide respiratory protection normally. Face shields are a great piece of PPE. They protect the face from nuisance dust and potential splashes or sprays from hazardous liquids, uh, and that can include coming from someone, right? Shields do not protect from impact hazards unless they're rated to do so. Shields are primarily for face protection, not eye protection. So if you're around something chipping, grinding, welding, you want to wear safety glasses underneath that um, face shield as well. If you're working with corrosives or caustics, something that could splash, you may want to have goggles underneath that face shield as well, just in case something were to splash underneath that face shield itself. Variety of different face shields, from ones that are completely open underneath to ones that have actually like a chin cup that will actually tuck under your chin as well. So again, find the right PPE for the hazard. So if you have employees, workers that wear prescription glasses, they got to wear eye protection, many eye prescription glasses, if you will, uh, have eye protection built in. They're impact resistant. They just may not have the side shields, which can be easily added on to them, portable side shields that snap on, snap off. Respiratory protection is something that's near and dear to a lot of folks at this moment in time. If you're using an N95 mask, Want to make sure that mask fits your face really well. There are instructions on the side of that box. The two straps that are on that respirator are adjustable. Actually, you can inch those back towards the back of your head, and it will make that respirator tighter around your face. If there's anything that can get in the way of the seal of that respirator to your face, it's going to create a path of least resistance for that contaminant, and you're not going to be as well protected. N95 simply means that the most it's going to protect you from is generally 95% of the contaminant. So fit is really important with that. Make sure that the nose piece is formed really well around the bridge of your nose, that you have the straps inched back, and then what you're able to do is go ahead and then test the respirator itself by cupping your hands over the respirator and breathing out extensively. And you want to feel if there's any kind of air that you feel around the edges of that respirator, it doesn't fit well, go ahead, tighten it up some more, and check that nose piece and carry on from there. Moving on to ear protection, or what's also known as hearing protection. This helps us protect our ears from exposure. Over 85 decibels can cause hearing loss. At 90 decibels, the employer is required to have a hearing protection program, which is training, protection, and also testing. Ear protection or hearing protection comes in a variety of forms. Some are foam plugs, molded ear plugs, all the way to ear muffs. A consideration here is the noise reduction rating for that particular protection. What I'd like you to do is whatever the rating is, divide that in half for the actual protection that it's going to give you. So for example, if you have disposable foam earplugs and it gives you a noise reduction rating of 20, I would like you to consider that it's only going to protect your hearing from 10 decibels. So if you're around noise that is 90 decibels and you properly have those foam earplugs inserted into your ear and they're rated for an NRR of 20, it's really going to reduce the decibel level from getting to your inner ear at 10 decibels approximately. So take the 90 decibels that you're exposed to, reduce it 10, and so what's actually going to enter into your inner ear is 80 decibels, which is below the level that is normally considered dangerous. That's an example of how to properly determine the hearing protection that you need. You may actually need to double up on your hearing protection, for example, using disposable foam plugs and also earmuffs as well over those to provide you with more protection depending upon the level of noise that you're ultimately exposed to. Your employer needs to do, again, this would be a workplace assessment type issue where we're going to do a dosimetry of noise in the area to determine the amount of decibels that people could be exposed to, and then come up with proper solutions for hearing protection and so forth. Let's talk about hand and arm protection. A lot of choices out there, but a variety of hazards call for a variety of different types of protection, from skin absorption type issues to severe cuts, whatever the hazard is, right? Abrasions, punctures, chemical and thermal burns, or harmful temperatures or extremes all call for different types of hand and arm protection. See a variety of different types of gloves, right? We have anti-vibration, leather palm, these resistant type gloves that help protect us from any kind of absorption type issue from caustics and corrosive type liquids, all the way up to bodily fluids, right? There's a different type of glove that provides that permeation issue resistance to us. Heat resistant, cut resistant, many different types of gloves for examples. Find the right glove that fits you, that's for the hazard. And then make sure that glove is not just proper and it fits, but then it's in good condition to wear. And if it's not, get another pair before you're exposed to the hazard. Going over foot and leg protection, variety of different issues, right, that can cause the need to have foot and leg protection. But basically, what people generally think of here is having steel-toed or protective-toe shoes. And what I just want to caution people of is make sure that you have the right shoe for that hazard, or the right boot, if you will. If it's something that, if you're really exposed to more hazards that are different than what that boot is designed for, or that shoe, you're still going to be apt to get potentially injured. Different types of foot injuries can be from heavy objects. If that happens, that's going to be more on the upper part of your foot than your toes. So for something like heavy objects, you may really want to have more metatarsal type protection. Sharp objects, molten metal, hot surfaces, slippery or wet surfaces, electrical hazards all call for a unique type of shoe that will help, or boot that will help protect you from those hazards. Examples could be impact resistant toe or instep, variety of different materials that will help do that, from steel to composite. But again, depending upon what you need that protective footwear for, will really help guide you towards if you want a steel-toed shoe or if you want a composite-toed shoe. If you're working around electricity, you're not going to have the steel-toed type component in there. It's going to be composite, along with a rating for non-conductive capabilities. Body protection is just that, right? Something that's going to protect our entire body from either heat, chemicals, some hazard, if you will. It could be radiation, contact with potentially infectious materials or bodily fluids, all prescribe, right, the need for a certain body protection. For example, you can have something from as simple as what may appear to be like a rain jacket, if you will, in some environments, but maybe it's designed for a very particular type of hazards. It could be chemical or some other, all the way to very specialized body protection. All those are designed to protect you from a very particular hazard. Very important from the aspect of workplace assessment to identify, again, that hazard that requires that body protection. Make sure that body protection is designed and capable of protecting you, fits properly, and so forth. Training, some of the particular items that we've been going over, right? Why PPE is necessary? To protect us, right? It's the last line of defense. It's going to put a barrier between us and the hazard. Okay. What it can do is it can help protect you up to a degree, but what it cannot do, it can't protect you from everything. For example, if you have a respirator and you're entering into an environment that is deficient in oxygen, you need a type of respirator that will provide you air. Having a filtering face piece will not provide you with oxygen. That's an example of something that what it can do, what it can't do, right? That filtering face piece is designed for a certain type of hazard, whether it's a particulate or a spray or something, right? But it can't provide you with oxygen if it's a filtering face piece. Much like a certain type of glove, if you need to be protected from a caustic or an acid, and we have a glove that is a cotton type glove, obviously that's not going to protect us from splashes and liquids, for example. Make sure you have the right PPE for that hazard. You want to wear that PPE before you're exposed to the hazard. I can't emphasize this enough. Having the PPE when you're exposed doesn't do you any good. Have it on before you're exposed. Make sure you know how to wear it, and it's proper for that, and it fits you right. You want to inspect your PPE before you use it. Any signs of wear or tear means it's time to get some different PPE. If you have your PPE on, you're protected, and you identify a problem with that PPE while you're wearing it, go to a known non-hazardous environment before you take that PPE off. And when PPE is worn and so forth, you want to properly dispose of it. Depending upon what that thing, what the PPE could have been exposed to, you may have to dispose of it in a different way. If it was exposed to some hazardous type material, the hazardous material is on that PPE. It needs to be disposed of as a hazardous material. Responsibilities. Employers have to assess the hazards, select that right PPE, provide it, make sure that it's adequate, whether it's purchased by the company or purchased by the employee. It remains the employer's responsibility to have a safe and healthy workplace, and that includes PPE. You want to train and enforce the use of PPE. Very important. Employees have to Go through training, participate in the training, use the training, use the PPEs prescribed, maintain it, inspect it, clean it, store it, use it, uh, replace it if it's damaged, and always see your supervisor if you have any questions at all. Reviewing hazard recognition, we have a few slides. Let's just go over these. This is an example of some of the ways that you can identify hazards. This is an example of an employee that's working in a situation where there's some sheet metal there. Their hands could be exposed to some sharp metal objects, and they would wear gloves. Not sure if they would need fall protection, but I noticed that they're working around some rafters. It looks like residential type construction, so probably fall protection is in order as well. And then also, if they're around some eye-type hazards, they could wear safety glasses. And if there's a large amount of noise in that environment, they would wear earplugs as well, for example. In this type of slide, what we see is we see some folks, right, some workers working with hot pavement. So footwear, if there's something that could splash on them, they may need body protection, safety glasses, something that could hit their head, hard hats, and so forth. Just got to take a close look at what they're exposed to and then what PPE is needed. This next slide, we can see a worker that's cutting some block, right, some concrete block, and it looks like he's involved in a lot of dust, but it looks like he has a proper respirator on as well that's completely encapsulating his head area and providing either filtered air to him, it looks like. So it looks like that's a good job there, right? And also, while he's cutting that block, he would need ear protection as well. And it looks like he has gloves on. Now, the one thing, it depends upon what might be flying off of there, but he's also exposed to that silica. Silica on his bare skin isn't good. It can actually become corrosive. If you have that concrete dust and he's sweating, that will become corrosive on his skin. So he really should have long sleeves on in that type of environment, in addition to proper safety footwear, I'm sure. But that's one example of doing a proper hazard recognition. You want to take a look at the whole picture, if you will, the hazard and how it can affect you from head to toe, in and out. Here's a picture here that might make us think, for a moment, right? Obviously, we have, it looks like a work site where there's a building being knocked down. It looks like it's barricaded to keep people away, but we definitely want to do that first because we don't know where those objects are going to fall or where that building may end up falling, right? The person that's in the cab of that truck, they're enclosed, but I also noticed their doors looks like it's open. It must be a hot type of a day, so it could be they're also exposed to a hot environment, right? So again, you want to take a look at the environmental factors and the work factors, all the issues involved when you're taking a look at a picture or an actual, right, assessing a workplace. What are all the hazards that that person is potentially exposed to? What can we do to eliminate it, engineer it out, have administrative controls, last line of defense, PPE. Always remember, right? Last slide. Always remember when it comes to PPE, assess that workplace for hazards. That's number one. More eyes, more people that are involved in that, the better. You can use a form that will actually document that hazardous inspection, and it can kind of walk you through what kind of PPE is actually needed, or you can hire an expert to help you with that. Expert can come in, assess your workplace for hazards, and then help you identify the proper things that can be used. Sometimes you can actually engineer out a hazard, and it could cost a little bit of money up front, but it can eliminate the need for PPE, make your workplace safer, and actually more productive. Something to think about, but that's where an expert could help with that process. Select and provide appropriate PPE at no cost to employees and to protect them. And this is the key thing for employees. Always don the PPE before the exposure. You got the right PPE, you've been trained, you know how to use it, it's safe to use, and you're ready to use it, use it. That's all I have. Really appreciate your time. Again, this is Ron Matrella with Health Safe Safety Consultants. Thank you so much.